Today we're going to give you a bit of an insight into our BA graduate programme, and I'm joined by a number of my colleagues who are here to share their experiences on the graduate BA programme, giving you a bit of an insight in terms of their programme, but also their journey so far. So on the panel today is Sarah Greedy, who is the Graduate Talent Development Manager who manages the graduate programmes. We also have Jess Padden, who has joined our graduate programme in 2019 and is in her second year of the programme. And then finally, we have Mary Jukes, who has completed her graduate programme last year and is now a business analyst within our business technology team. So today, as we mentioned, we wanted to give you an insight in terms of the BA graduate programme, to go through a little bit around what a typical day is involved as a business analyst here at BGL, the support we've got in place, and also what our graduates have been up to post-programme. So Sarah Greedy, I'd like to start with yourself if that's okay. So would you mind giving us a bit of an overview of what the BA programme involves here at BGL?
So the BA or Business Analyst programme was launched back in 2018. So it's one of our newer programmes and it forms part of our bigger group of technology grad programmes. The real vision for the programme was to create a source of really talented future business analysts and longer term senior business analysts. And across a 2-year programme, we would give graduates exposure to different areas of the BGL group and different roles of being a business analyst during that time. So getting involved with different product or different delivery teams, getting some great exposure to different technology stacks, different delivery styles, and helping the business to solve current and future problems and really getting an opportunity to get involved. So that's how I would summarise the programme.
Fabulous, thank you. And then over to Mary and Jess. So starting with you, Jess, could you give a bit of an overview of your department, your role, and what a typical day involves within a business analyst role?
Yeah, sure. So I'm currently in my 3rd rotation at BGL. I'm currently back in business technology where I spent my 1st rotation. So I've only just started this one. I started it last Monday. But sort of typical things that I would get up to. So each day we have a morning stand-up. So there we review our Jira board, which we use to track all of the tickets that our engineers are working on. And then we can raise issues in those 10 minutes that we have in the morning as well. And we also use agile methodologies within our teams. So every 2 weeks we would have sort of a day of agile ceremonies. So that would be things like retrospectives where we'd sort of summarise how the last sprint had gone and talk about any issues that the team had and things that we should continue, and then also plan for upcoming weeks of work as well. And in terms of sort of BA responsibilities, sort of throughout the weeks, I would do things like managing the Jira board that we use, getting any new requirements from our stakeholders, and then also working with our senior BA and delivery manager on any work that I can help them with.
Okay, sounds interesting, quite varied then.
Yeah, definitely. It's good because no 2 days are the same. So you sort of come in sometimes not even knowing what you're going to do, but it's good to have that element of surprise, really.
Okay, fabulous. And Mary, you've now come off the programme itself. So what sort of have you been up to, and how does your day differ maybe to it being on the graduate programme?
Hi, yeah, as you said, so I'm currently in business technology, so I'm in the data solutions team and we support BGL's insurance distribution and outsourcing pillar. Jess gave a really good overview actually, so most of the things that Jess does, I currently do too. And as cheesy as it sounds, every day really is different. So as Jess said, most days we start with facilitating the daily stand-up. And just checking how things are going, so what the developers are doing today, what they're going to do, if there's any blockers and stuff and how we can help. But it really does depend for me in where we are in the sprint cycle. So as Jess said, we work again in agile methodologies, so our sprints are 2 weeks. So one day we'll be getting tickets ready for prioritization. So that involves like in-depth analysis, requirements engineering, working with our stakeholders. And then the same day next week, we could be preparing for the retrospective, so analysing how we've got on in the last sprint, I'm also involved in a lot of the user testing, so we run like workshops with our stakeholders to see kind of how we've got on and validating the requirements. So yeah, it really is different. So not too dissimilar to Jess. Yeah.
Fabulous. Okay. And Jess, could you tell me a little bit about what projects you've been working on as part of the graduate programme?
Yeah, sure. So one of them, when I worked in data engineering at Compare the Market in my second rotation, we're working on a project to build a brand new data platform from scratch for the entire company. So that was quite a key project within the business, and it involved a lot of speaking to different stakeholders from data and people from machine learning and things like that. So that was really interesting and something that I'd not worked on before. And also I was doing a lot of data analysis in that role as well. So that's sort of part of the business analyst role in that sense. And then currently on my final rotation, the one I'm on now, we're building new technology to implement into our contact centres, so that when a customer rings up, they can speak to they wouldn't speak to an agent, but they sort of speak to a machine, I guess, to get their issues resolved, which is really interesting as well. And I'm excited to be working on it.
Sounds like you're working on some really interesting projects. And what about yourself, Mary?
Yeah, so throughout my rotations, I was quite lucky to work on so many different projects. I started off with brand rollout. So we were just going through changing all our front end journeys. So that was quite lucky that I got to work with some of our brands like M&S, Co-op, which was good for my development and network. And then when I was in CTM, I worked on a really good project that was transforming the motor aggregation journey. So we were reducing the number of clicks that people had to go through to get a quote. So that was really good and really fun. I've also been involved in a lot of data projects, as you can imagine, some really good ones in stuff to do with tackling fraud, also enhancing better data quality, all the stuff I love, which has been great. But also on the Tech Grad scheme, we were involved in quite a few projects together with the Tech Grads, and those really helped my networking and development in quite early on, which was good. So yeah.
So it sounds like you're getting involved in some really sort of value-added projects for BGL, which is exciting, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, fabulous. And then over to yourself, Jess. So could you sort of describe what support you've received whilst being on the graduate programme?
Yeah, sure. So you get support in loads of different ways, which is really good. So sort of the first bit that you see is that you get a buddy before you join the program. So that's usually like a past grad or someone who's had similar experiences to you. So my buddy was actually Mary, and you can sort of speak to them before you join and just ask like any silly questions that you have before your first day, which is really useful. And then you have the opportunity to meet up with them sort of in the first couple of weeks and months when you start. And then there's also the mentoring program that we have. So that is usually with people in another department or another pillar within the business. So maybe someone whose role that you'd be aspiring to work towards after the program. So I was working with a mentor who's a senior business analyst at Compare the Market when I was in my first rotation at Business Technology. And they're sort of good to find out how business analysts work in their department before you move over there, maybe for your second rotation, and sort of just to get advice from about how a BA works and things like that, which was really useful. And then you also have a line manager who you report to and usually who you meet up with sort of every week or so. And they've usually managed grads before, so they've had experience of that, which is really good. And then also the grad community, so the people that you started with. So you may have sort of other BA grads on your who joined at the same time as you. So sort of they're going through the same thing as you, so it's really useful to speak to them. And then obviously the overall BA community, we sort of have community meetings sort of every so often, so it's good to meet up with those different BAs, some who work in your team and some who work in other teams, to sort of collaborate with them, which is really useful.
Wow, so it sounds like you've got a huge amount of support on your programs, which is brilliant to hear. So I know that as part of your graduate program, you also do a qualification as part of your program. So Jess, would you tell me a little bit about what that qualification involves?
Yeah, sure. So it's the International Diploma in Business Analyst, and it's sort of designed to help you demonstrate like a detailed understanding of BA best practice. So as part of that, you will have 4 different modules, and they're usually sort of classroom teaching ones. And at the end of those, you would have a multiple choice exam. So the ones that I was doing, which would probably be similar to what future BA grads will be doing, are Foundations of Business Analysis, which is sort of an overall view of the BA role, requirements engineering as well, which is a really useful one. So it's sort of learning about different ways that you can get requirements from people and how you can do that. And then also business analysis practice is another one. So you go into more detail there about agile methodologies, which is useful because a lot of teams do that within the rotations, which is good. And then modeling business processes as well. So not only sort of writing requirements written, it's also like ways that you can display them in different diagrams and stuff like that. And then at the end of that, you will have an oral exam, which is sort of like a summary of all of that. So I'm currently working through the modules, but I know Mary has done the oral exam.
And how have you found that, Mary?
Yeah, the oral exam, it's not as scary as it sounds. So after I've completed the 4 modules, it's basically just like a conversation. It really is a chat in terms of they'll ask you questions throughout those 4 modules and just see where your kind of understanding is and what experience you've had in role with anything you might have learnt as well. So it was quite informal. There was a bit of a test at the end. Also, I found if I was stuck on anything, they'll kind of help you and ask you questions around it, which was really useful. And they just want to find out what you know, basically, which is good. So yeah.
Fabulous. Okay. And Mary, you've now completed your graduate programme. So could you tell us a little bit about what you've been up to following on the completion of your programme?
Yeah, it feels like forever ago now, actually. And so speaking of the exams and things as well, so I'm currently working towards the advanced diploma. So I'm about to start the advanced requirements engineering course, which I'm really excited about. It sounds a bit cheesy, but that one would really give you more foundation in terms of your day-to-day role. So that's good. When I finished the tech grad scheme, I was quite lucky. I knew where I wanted to be. As you can tell, I love data, so that was my last rotation. So there was a role that came up, I applied, and I'm now the business analyst in that team. They hadn't had a business analyst before, so it was a really good opportunity to take everything I'd learned from the past rotations and get them into a good place. So that's really good. And I'm currently looking at other modules and things to help. So yeah, there's been loads of projects, loads of learning. Every day is a school day, we always say. But I'm quite lucky because I've got a senior BA now on my team as well. So I learn from her continuously.
It's amazing to see that you're going from strength to strength and continuing with that development. So well done, well done. Fabulous. Okay, so anyone thinking of sort of applying for the BA graduate programme, what one top tip would you give to that person? And I'll open that up to anybody.
I would say definitely do as much research as you can before you start, because there's I'm not sure if they're going to be doing it this year, but there was like a lightning interview round that we had where there were questions being asked about the business, which obviously if you hadn't have researched, you may not have known them. So definitely sort of do your research and don't just like look at the website, like read articles that are written about BGL and things. I would say that's my top tip.
Yeah, that's definitely a good one. For me as well, I would say don't write off any experience that you might have. So there's loads of transferable skills for the BA role. For example, I started off in the recruitment team, and there was loads of stuff like stakeholder management, communications. There's loads of generalist skills. So when you're applying, just think about anything you've done at uni or any other kind of roles that you've had and what experience you've had there, and talk about it and explore that because it will help.
Fabulous. Okay, some great top tips there. Thank you. Thank you very much. So if I could just say a big thank you to my panel today. So further information on our graduate programs can be found on the BGL website. Make sure you sort of adhere to those top tips from Jess and Mary. So if you go to bglgroup.co.uk, you'll find all of our open vacancies on the website. If you're also interested in finding out a little bit more around what our graduates have been up to on a day-to-day basis, they also have their own Instagram account, which is BGL Group Graduates. So feel free to follow them on Instagram and find out what they're getting up to on a day-to-day basis. But thank you very much to my panel today, and that's the end of our session.